Hello again, everyone. Today I want to share my usual travel palette for watercolor and the tools that I use with it, and I'm also going to swatch the colors that I have in here. So first off, I'll just talk about what I have here on the table. So this is a Schminke palette, and I originally got this as a set. And I got it from Jackson's because otherwise it would have been way too expensive. But part of why I like this particular tin is, you can see from the outside, and I'll show you when I open it, is it has 3 separate little reservoirs here that are for mixing. And a lot of these only have 2. So I like having the extra reservoir. And then here a little preview of what's to come. And then there's all these little mixing parts down here, and I've actually taken out there's normally a little rack in here that holds 2 rows of watercolors in half pans, and I took that out and just basically filled it with half pans and 1 full pan of watercolor. So I will go through these in a minute, but I wanted to show you the other tools that I generally use. And here's my little swatch so you can see that in the meantime. So this is a platinum fountain pen, and the number name is escaping me because it does have a number as its name. Here, I'll move this over so you can see that a little bit better. And this is actually no longer available, unfortunately. At one point, this was a super cheap way to get a gold nib fountain pen for fairly decent price, for like around 50 bucks. And I got mine off of Amazon. I think you can still find some, and I will put the specific name and the link down below, but it is not currently available, so you may not be able to find it as easily. But this has a gold nib on it, and it is a very fine nib, and it has carbon black ink in it, so it's permanent. And then I use this to sketch with, and then once it's dried, it does take like a minute or so to dry, you can watercolor over it and it works really great. I will do a little sample of that when I'm swatching. And then is my travel brush. So this is a Rosemary & Company travel brush. It is a 1/4 inch dagger brush. And I kind of use this for almost everything. I do like using the rounds, but this you can get so much variation with that I really like using it, and I'm going to use it for the swatches, so you'll see. And this is, I think it's a mix of Kolinsky sable and synthetic fiber. And it holds a lot of water, and it's a really great brush. And all of the brushes from Rosemary & Company, they have a really wide range of travel brushes that are all really great. And you may notice that this one is not labeled with my label maker. That's because it used to be housed in here back when I had the little tray with the 2 rows, and you can put the brush in the middle. And I had it in there for so long that I didn't take it out when I labeled the other brushes. So this one still needs to be labeled, but it is a 1/4 inch dagger brush. And you can see you have to be kind of careful not to make sure that the individual bristles don't get bent back, but then you just put it in there. Okay, well, let's get to the fun part, which is swatching all these colors. I'm going to move this over. Okay, and then I do have a little cup of water here. And sometimes when I'm on the go, I will use some sort of portable water holder. And I may go into that later. I don't really have anything that I super love, so I kind of use different things depending on where I am. But sometimes I'll use little Nalgene bottles, and just tiny little Nalgene bottles, and I'll just use that. And that works pretty well if I'm like hiking or something and want to paint while I'm hiking. So let's just go down the list here. So this is a mix of pans that I poured myself. You can see some of them are really kind of dried up and low down in the pan there, so I didn't do a very good job. So some of them I filled myself, and some of them came either as single purchases or as part of a set. And I have Daniel Smith in here, I have Schminke in here, and I have Winsor Newton, and then I think I have one Rembrandt brand. Yeah, and I'll show you when I get to it. And they are all artist quality. And let's see. So let's just start with the Daniel Smith Buff Titanium. And this may not swatch, I need some more water there. This may not swatch super dark, especially here on the video, but it's mainly a mixing color. And I'm planning on making this the first in a series, the second being mixing these colors to show you what great mixes you can get out of it. But you could also use this for highlights or like buildings or something that are sort of this off-white color. But it's also really great for mixing pastels, kind of like you would a white. And then I actually have two of this particular one. These are 2 half pans of the same color. It's Schminke Lemon Yellow. And the reason why I have 2 is one, and you can see I haven't used one as much as the other. And it's a really nice bright yellow. So one is for mixing greens, which you can kind of tell which one that is. And the other I use just as is or to mix warm colors. And I just mixed up my palette actually, so this is a fairly new addition, having this second one here. I just was having such a hard time keeping this yellow clean that I decided to to add a second pan. I could have used just one full pan, but it's still hard if it's all part of the same pan to keep it separated. So then this one is, oh, again, I need some more water. This is Winsor Newton Windsor Red. And that's a really nice bright red that is good on its own, but again, it's good for mixing because it's kind of bright. Like if I'm going to be doing nature things, it's a little too bright for that. So it's really great for mixing. And then the next color is another Winsor Newton in Permanent Rose. And I did not put water on each of these watercolors before I started swatching. So that's part of the reason why I'm having to dip back into water to make it a little wetter. And Permanent Rose is really great for making purples with a variety of blues. It makes some really crisp, clear purples. And then this one is Potter's Pink, which is not a very strong color, and it may not go down very well as just on its own. Let me get some more there. You can see it's kind of a muddy pink color, but it's really great in mixes, and it does granulate, which if you don't know what granulation is, it's basically how there's a little bit of sediment in there from the pigment, and it settles into, like this is a cold pressed watercolor paper, which means it has a little bit of a texture to it, and then it will granulate into the paper there, and you can really see like individual grains of color, which is kind of cool. And it's when you put it in a mix, it's really great for bringing that particular aspect of this color out, but the color kind of blends in with other things. And again, you'll see that when we do the mixing video. And so this is, and that was by Daniel Smith, if I didn't say. And then this one is Daniel Smith in Lunar Earth. And this is kind of like a burnt sienna, but it's very granulating. Again, I really like granulating colors because they really bring out a lot of really interesting elements. And when you put them in your paintings, it really kind of makes it a little bit more interesting. Now, you know, not everybody might like that if you're doing floral painting and you want really crisp edges and really soft colors. granulating colors may not be the best, but they're great for landscapes, which I do a lot of. So I'm actually going to skip this last row here at the end here because this is kind of in a continuation of this bottom row, so I'm going to get to that one last. So then next we have, I'm going to add a little bit more water so that we can get a decent swatch the first time. So this is Schminke Quinacridone Gold. And that's a really beautiful color. Again, it makes some really nice sort of muddy looking greens, which I love, and are a little bit more realistic looking. Okay, so I'm gonna skip the lemon yellow because we already did that. And then this is Schminke Titanium Gold Ochre. And it's a little bit more opaque than the other two yellows, which can have some use in itself when you're choosing a yellow to use. And also makes some really interesting greens. I may do a whole video just on mixing greens because that's it's one of my favorite colors to mix because there's so much potential variation. Okay, so this is Daniel Smith Aussie Red Gold. And this, so I should also say that most of these colors in this palette are single pigment colors, meaning there's only one pigment element in the color. But this one is a mix of a bunch of different things. Let's see, some reds and some yellows. But I was a little concerned about how it might mix with other things, given that it is already a mix of other colors, but it actually mixes really well and makes some great mixes. One of the most surprising mixes, which I might do it towards the end just to kind of give you a taste of what you might see, is Aussie Red Gold with Sap Green. It's actually a really, they're both multi-pigment colors, but they actually make a really cool color together, or a variety of colors rather. Okay, and then this is Daniel Smith Lunar Red Rock. And this is kind of like an Indian red. But again, it's not as opaque as Indian red, and it's also a really nice granulating color. Because you can kind of see now like the difference between granulating colors and non-granulating colors. Like this particular pink, it's really flat in that the color is kind of smooth. Actually, let me move that down a little bit so you can see better. And then here you can see the pigment is settling into the texture of the paper. And same's going for that one. So the next one is, okay, so this is Winsor Newton Burnt Sienna. So the reason why I have a burnt sienna in addition to the lunar earth, well, first off, it's a little more orangey than the lunar earth, but also it's non-granulating. The Winsor Newton brand is non-granulating. Daniel Smith makes a burnt sienna that is granulating, but I kind of wanted to have both aspects on my palette. So if I wanted something that doesn't granulate, I can use this instead of lunar earth, and it's a little more orangey. So again, I'm going to go down and around, and then I'm going to go up here. So this is Daniel Smith Sap Green, and for whatever reason, I kind of held out on getting Sap Green for a while. Probably mostly because it is a mix of so many different pigments, because I kind of like to mix my own colors, but this is so beautiful. It's like such a beautiful color. And here, I'll go ahead and do the mix of, so what I like to do for mixing is put down one color, and I'll move that up a little, and then put down the other color and mix it in. But you can see that, so this is the Daniel Smith Sap Green and Aussie Red Gold. And it kind of makes a beautiful green gold color, which I was very surprised by. Although if you think of the two together, green and gold make green gold. I probably should have figured that out. But there's that. And it really is a very complex color, so that's why I like it. And okay. So the next one is Schminke Fallow Green. And this is a really bright green, and I'm rarely using it just by itself because it is so bright. I apologize for the for all the messages coming in while this is happening. I rarely use this by itself because it is so bright, but it makes, and again, I'll show you another mix just to give you a preview of mixing. I'll do that at the end because this color mixed with Schminke Perylene Violet makes a great black. So it's kind of a convenience black. Well, not convenience, you're still mixing two colors, but it is nice in that it is just two colors and it makes a pretty deep black. Because usually if you mix your blacks, they're going to look a lot more interesting than if you use them just out of the tube. Okay, and then this one is Daniel Smith Sleeping Beauty Turquoise. And a lot of people like this color, and it's really very beautiful. Okay, and then the next one, this is the only Rembrandt brand color that I have on here, but it's really pretty. Oops, I think it's more pigment. So this one is Rembrandt Cerulean Blue, and it's, again, a very granulating color. The Sleeping Beauty Turquoise is also a granulating color, but not as much as this Cerulean Blue. And then this is Fallow Blue Red shade from Daniel Smith. Let me get that. And most of the time in palettes you're seeing the green shade of Fallow Blue. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I won't go into all of the color theory. But basically, red shade means it goes slightly warmer, as opposed to the green shade going to a slightly cooler blue. And I'll go more into that in different videos, but for now, that's the basics. And then this color that you've clearly seen I've used a lot here is Schminke Ultramarine Finest. Ultramarine Blue, I never thought I really liked the tone of Ultramarine Blue, but I use it so much for mixing all kinds of colors that I use it so much. And then I actually have another Ultramarine Blue on here. I have a Daniel Smith French Ultramarine Blue, and this one is granulating. The one by Schminke is not. And you can see this one is a little bit warmer maybe. Yeah, and a little more intense, I think, than the one by Schminke. Okay, and then we're going to go up to this one. So this is Indigo by Daniel Smith, and this color I use a lot for darkening colors and darkening mixes. I use it essentially instead of black to make things darker, and it works pretty well. I also just love it as a color as is. I love indigo. Okay, and then this is the last color. This is the Schminke Perylene Violet. And that's also really pretty. It's good as on its own. It also can darken up some colors, but I'll show you the mix. And again, I'm just gonna put that on first and then do the Phthalo Green. And see, you can already see it might be going a little green right now because I probably put a little bit too much green to purple, but even that's a beautiful color. So if I add a little bit more violet, you can see it's leaning more towards black now. Okay, so that's it for my watercolor travel setup. This is my current setup. I change it out a lot. And I do have an awful lot of travel palettes, which I will share with you, at least some of them in future videos. But this is one that is kind of like an all-purpose palette. I like that I can create a whole lot of greens because I have a whole bunch of different variants of yellow. And even going over here with the burnt sienna and these colors here, you can still make some greens, because I do a lot of nature painting. And I like that I can make a lot of purples because of all the different blues, even with just these two reds. And it's a great palette for kind of anything you might be able to come up with. Oh, and I did say that I was going to test out this fountain pen for you. So let's see. You can get kind of wispy lines here, and then you can also do really hard lines. And this is also a bit of a flexible nib, so you're going to get some variation in line. So I'm going to let that dry for just a second, blowing on it a little bit here. And then I will paint over it. Let's go with the Daniel Smith Sap Green. Now see, I did not wait long enough up there, and it was a thicker line. So that it is going to bleed if you go right into it. But down here, I'm guessing that, see, so where it's already dry, you're gonna have a much easier time, and then you can go over. So there really should be more time in between you laying down the ink and putting the watercolor on. But if you can see right here that it already dried and it goes over no problem, but you do have to wait till it dries. But you can also get some pretty cool, like, bleeding effects of the ink before it dries, which I do sometimes take advantage of too. And then it kind of blends the ink into the watercolor as well. So there you go. All right, well, I'm going to leave it there. It's a pretty long video, but I hope you enjoyed seeing all of these different colors that I have in my watercolor palette. Next time, at least the next art video that I'm going to do is going to be color mixing. So I will hopefully see you there. All right, and feel free to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Thanks.